Okay, well, a lot of people are accusing me of all sorts of political alliances, and I just want to make it clear that, people are saying because it's such a thin political skin that there was a posting on Facebook of the editor of the Newsday talking to the Prime Minister, and people started saying vulgarities about how she has her mouth open and she's going to take something in her mouth. And Judy Raymond is not a friend of mine. She's a maybe 50 or 60-year-old woman. She's a mother. I know she has a son that's about 35. So I replied, I said, listen, man, there's no reason to speak vulgarities. This is a mother. It's a woman. And even though she may or may not have a political lean, it's no reason to denigrate so femininity, her womanhood. And if you see how they start to accuse me of being a closet PNM, which I am not, and in this instance, talking about this fisheries bill, I don't bear any flag for any political party. No one, Phillip. I'm saying what I'm saying because we have been working with this bill since we started FFOS 21 years ago. We were calling for this legislation because Trinidad has the oldest fisheries legislation on the planet. And I say that with a great sense of shame, and that is because Trinidad and Tobago has no respect for the small man. And these small men have been left to fight for their living and to fight with all of their might to earn themselves a place in the world. And oftentimes, the sad reality is they are such a neglected group that they attract people who have less academic qualifications, who may, for one reason or another, be displaced. They may have a criminal record, may be unable to find a job. I don't discriminate against ex-con. I am afraid, like everyone else, that if a person has a past in which they've been involved in a crime, that it could occur again. They may have friends, and so the society backs off from people with a record. But the fishery is an open access. It's an open access fishery. Now, it's not good that it's open access, but it is what it is. It is the shelter for the socially and economically and educationally displaced. It is where they are welcome, and where if they have able-bodiedness, they can make their way. So we have always supported the idea that we needed legislation. But what has happened here over the past 20 years is that every 10 years, a draft of the document would surface, and at great effort, we would become involved in a public consultation process and a comment process. And 90% of the comments are lost, and they don't give us the courtesy of an explanation as to why they would not consider the comments. The last time when the UNC government was in power, they came up with the draft of the legislation, and we encouraged and succeeded in getting national consultation, East, West, North, South, and Tobago, and we attended every single consultation because the grassroots people don't understand how to read the technicalities and implications of how the law is written. It's written in a way that the first time I began reading law 28 plus years ago, and even I have very little education, but it's very difficult to read. You must be trained to understand how the implications, a simple word like may or shall, changes the whole direction of a law and the implication of how it would be implemented and what it would mean. So we attended all of these consultations and compiled 90 plus recommendations. We employed attorneys to meet with and negotiate with Fisheries Division. So it was not just a fly-by-night activity in which we engaged Fisheries Division to be able to constructively input into what we consider a critical law to modernize and manage the fishery so that the fishers could benefit. And 90% of our recommendations, they came back 10 years later, 2 years ago, and had a consultation. It was an invite-only consultation. And so we have to call and ask, in the first instance, to demand and threaten that if we weren't invited, we were going to bring 500 able-bodied men and block the entrance to the consultation. And so we were able to be invited. Just imagine that. And I don't feel proud of it, but sometimes one has no choice when confronted with ignorance than to be ignorant as well. And so we were invited to the consultation. The second bridge we had to cross is that you're having a consultation on a 1,000-page document, but you don't give the public a copy of the document in advance of the meeting. So again, we had to threaten that we must have a copy of the document so that we could study it, have meetings with our focal point leaders, and have some clear idea of our comments to the document. When we went to the meeting, we threatened as well. We threatened that we must have it. We got it 3 days before the meeting, and when, with such short notice, I mean, I don't know, your audience may want to criticize me as being rash and too aggressive, but you have to understand that this is life and death. This is like telling a taxi driver that if his tire isn't full at a particular capacity, that he could lose his taxi and his license and go to prison and lose everything that he had worked for because the air in his tire wasn't at a particular level. So it's not a matter that you could just turn away from, because it may be sensible that the pressure in the tire needs to be for public safety at a particular level. But maybe this particular driver drives a particular way and he prefers it for his own safety, for the type of road or route that he runs. And so he should be given an opportunity to express himself. Don't just force it down his throat as though he has no sense. And in the fishery division, it is a science. The sea is a science. So to the average man who drives on a road every day, he has an average understanding of what the road means and a general sense of knowledge of how an automobile interacts with a road. But the average citizen does not have sense of the sea. The sea is a dynamic that it is something in nature. It is like being in the eye of a hurricane. You see, so you cannot, as a layman, dictate what should and should not be on the sea, unless you have that intricate knowledge of all of the complexities that occur on the sea. So the consultation process that took place in Central 2 years ago was invite only. And they had all high-level public servants, all high-level international executives from the UN and the Food and Agricultural Organization and the American organizations and the embassies. And if 10% of the constituents of that meeting were fishermen, it were a lot. And those who were there, I don't want to denigrate the representation, but there is representation in the fishery of an organization that I served as the interim secretary, and my president served as the interim president, because we were interested 20 years ago in forming a national body. But those persons who now sit on that national body have not held elections, have not circulated and broad-based an executive that could function with an authority of the grassroots, and they have monopolized representation in the fishery sector. And I know them. One is a retired school teacher who never fished a day in his life.
Gary.
And so they have no knowledge of the fishery, but they are the recognized body of a fishing organization.
Gary.
So yes.
I just want to interrupt you for a second, just to tell those who just joined us. On the phone with me is Secretary of Fishermen Friends in the Sea, Gary Aboud. He is raising a very serious issue, some heavy-handed legislating taking place where the operation of our fisheries are concerned, our fishermen, and he is raising that issue. So for those of you who just joined, and please share the video, this is Gary Aboud, and he is raising this issue, and he's getting to the point as to what is wrong with that legislation, so that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, could weigh our voices in, because fishermen feed this country. And we need to stand with our fishermen like we stand with our farmers. And I'm turning you back over to Mr. Gary Aboud.
Well, in 1992, it was estimated that we numbered 52,000 souls that made a living on the sea. Now that is not a small number, 50,000 people. And from 92 until now, that number has grown. And although we support the idea of new and modernized legislation, and although we recognize that Trinidad has the oldest legislation on managed fisheries on the planet, and there's an urgent need to modernize the legislation, our position is that there should be public discourse with the scientists of the sea, the fishermen and the scientists who have knowledge of the intricacies of the sea and fishery management.
Indeed.
And instead, what they have done from the era when we had Devon Mirage and they brought the legislation forward to us, there were penalties. For instance, I'll give you a couple of examples. If a father, on August holidays, he has a 16-year-old son. When I was 16, I was a full-grown man. And if a father takes a 16-year-old son because fish are biting and he's teaching his son, or the son is recreating with him, but the father is working on the sea, and the father has a license and he has a licensed vessel, everything is according to the requirements. But the son cannot get a license because the son is underaged. And the father takes the son out, or employs the son, or asks the son to help him, to come and help me clean fish, or sell fish, or catch fish, or mend the net, or go out to sea with me. The father could lose his license to fish. He could lose his boat, his vehicle which he transport. It gets worse. And the father could be charged a maximum penalty of $700,000 TT dollars.
But what is the offense there? What is the problem there? I mean, fishing like farming, like any of the old skill sets that underpin society, has to be passed from one generation to the next. How do you expect the boy to learn?
You could deliberately discharge oil and deliberately cause an oil spill, or by your own negligence after warning, you could have caused a massive oil spill like has occurred in Trinidad over and over, and you would not be even charged 10% of the penalty that you will charge a fisherman. If a fisherman goes to sea, according to this legislation, and he's coming back in, and he meets someone swimming offshore, drowning, and he pulls the person ashore to save him, and he comes back on shore with the man, a fisheries officer would have the authority to charge you and accuse you of taking that man to fish without a license, and you could be charged.
So Gary Aboud, I have to ask you this question straight up. What you're saying is that the government is saying that you can only fish if you have a license to fish?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So you need a license?
About it is that there's a discrimination about it.
No, but Gary, this is insane. This is an insane position to take. That's like telling me you need a license to pick a mango.
But there is some merit in wanting to regulate who is hunting in the forest. And there is some merit to the idea of regulating.
Yeah, but regulating hunting is because hunters have guns, and guns could kill people. But I've never heard of fishermen hooking a man to death. It may have happened, but it doesn't happen regularly, and I've never heard about it. The reason for regulating hunters is so that hunters take hunting very seriously. You look how they're drunk hunting and shoot one another. And I understand that. And I understand regulating the boats, licensing the boats, GPSing the boats to prevent against things like drug trade and terrorism and everything else that you can use a boat for. But telling me that you need a license to fish is going way beyond the powers of the state.
Well, I mean, in my respectful view, in the same way that a taxi driver needs to be licensed, there's certain safety protocols and there's certain regulatory information that's required about the harvest and what you're planning to catch, how your vessel is outfitted. We need to have...
Gary, I respectfully disagree, because all of that falls under the vessel. and the management of the vessel, what type of vessel. If you have long line trawlers and all this kind of bacchanal, I know that falls under the vessel and licensing certain vessels to work in certain areas. But a man with a net down in Cedros or down in Las Cuevas or Caranage, fishing to make a living and fishing to bring fish in the fish market to sell. Or somebody, so if you go on a jetty with a line and you fishing, that is covered by this legislation?
Yes. Actually, it's draconian, but you see, it sounds draconian from where we are coming from because we are so accustomed to absolutely no regulations to manage a common shared resource, to a state where the regulations are draconian, dictatorial, and radical. I'll give you an example. If a fisherman goes to sea or goes on a jetty or goes recreationally to fish on a leisure vessel and he does not have his license in his pocket, the penalty for the pleasure boat, let's say $1 million boat trip, where 10 bikini women fishing off the boat, catching fish in their G-strings, you could only charge them $10,000 TT for the violation of not having a license in their pocket. Now, they own a license, but they don't have it in their pocket. If, however, a commercial fisherman in a pirogue is on a vessel fishing next to the bird trap, and he also does not have his license, he can be charged 700,000 TT as the maximum penalty. Plus, he can lose his boat, his engine, his net, and his license. And if he so chooses to appeal, to say, wait, now this is unfair, you're misunderstanding. He's granted the right of an appeal. And so he goes before the director of fisheries, who has the sole discretion of determining whether the penalty is upheld or not upheld.
Gary, it sounds like we're turning this country into a dictatorship. I apologize for the dog barking in the background. But it sounds like we're turning this country into a dictatorship. I go in Price Mart and I see them selling imported fish, trout and other American fish being imported to Trinidad and Tobago. Are we trying to discourage local fishermen from fishing? Is that what we're trying to do?
Well,
to the benefit of the importers?
What it appears to me is that we have international bodies who, in great spirit, want to protect the global fishery. And so, as a sudden impact, we want to align Trinidad and Tobago's legislation with the legislation that complies with the European Union and North American drive to regulate and protect migratory species and species that are endangered. But that's another point. In Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have knowledge either of the names, the international names of these species, because we call our fish according to our name, our local lingo and our local names. And so there are international species, migratory species that are endangered and are protected under international regulations. But God help a fisherman if he catches one of those fish and brings it ashore and is caught with one of those fish. Because if I tell you the penalty is $1.5 million, how is a fisherman going to pay that?
But Gary, I have to ask you a simple question. This law seems to be an overcorrection. It seems to be an overreach. The things that you say that you need a law for, where fishing is concerned, some of those things you're speaking about, it seems to me, it suggests to me the same way we discourage farmers from farming, we're trying to discourage fishermen from fishing.
Well, when the fishermen fully understand what is contained in this law, it has the potential to cause political instabilities and social instabilities because, I mean, we have all sorts of people talking about rights, but they need to consider the rights of our coastal communities as well. And I'm not saying that there should be a free-for-all where people should be allowed to do what they want on the sea. We have to have regulations to protect us against human nature. We have to protect the national resource, the fishery resource. For instance, from overharvesting of juvenile species, from harvesting of migratory species that are here spawning, or where we have particular areas where they spawn, where fishermen go to those areas at the times when they're spawning. It's, like, for instance, what happened with the flying fish?
Yeah, but Gary,
overharvesting when the fish are spawning. So
Gary, the most destructive thing to fish in the world right now is the amount of plastics in the sea, and per capita, Trinidad is one of the largest polluters in the world of the sea, of plastics, because we have no plastic bottle tax, and we have no no beverage container bill. We have nothing. We're doing nothing to protect the sea from industry in Trinidad and Tobago and from litter, but we're going to protect the sea from fishermen. And I'm asking you that what you're talking about, the overfishing of species and things, does that apply to the small pirogue fishermen, or are you talking about the people, or the trawlers and the long line haulers and that kind of thing?
Well, I have seen it in my time when everybody who is involved in the resource overharvest in an unregulated manner. So, we have all kinds of examples I could give you going back from my childhood, when particular species were available in abundance in particular areas during certain times of the year, and we harvest indiscriminately. So there's a need to manage the quantity that we can harvest and the size of what we harvest and when we can harvest. But the way in which we do this and the way in which we communicate this to our people should be in a brotherly way, where common sense will prevail and where wisdom would have an opportunity to be shared in a humanitarian way. Our people are suffering, and to come with this law, with these draconian penalties 6 months before an election, seems like it's like such a drastic disrespect of the grassroots. And to accelerate the penalties from $1,500 TT from the last government, which perhaps were too little and would be considered a tap on the knuckles, but to take it all the way up to $700,000 TT. And if I tell you there are like 200 penalties at 700,000 TT, and then you have about 10 pages at 1.5 and 2 million and 2.5 million, it's cheaper for an oil company to discharge 100,000 gallons of oil deliberately, and you would be charged 100,000 TT as a maximum penalty. But our boys could go on the sea without a license in their pocket, which they're not going to keep in their pocket. When you go on the sea, you go on with a loose pants, you're going to work, you don't carry a wallet or anything in your pocket. And the vessel sometimes gets swamped in water. So the last place you're going to take your ID and your documentation is on the boat. And you could charge them half of $700,000.
Okay, so Gary, I had to ask you this, right? Do you and your organization have a response to the legislation, what you propose should be done, or are you just challenging what has been proposed in the current legislation?
We are great supporters of the legislation, and based on what the Prime Minister said when he announced it last week Friday, we are supportive of all the constructive aspects of what the legislation aims to achieve.
Right, but there are things in the legislation that you are against.
But the penalties and the manner in which they have determined how the legislation would be crafted, and the authority that they would give to one single person without any stake. Imagine the director of fisheries don't like me, because we have been tooth and nail against them. So if one of my vessels or me get caught fishing on a jetty or fishing on a boat, God help me, I have to go before the director. She would become an authority she would become the Privy Council, because her say is, the legislation final. So
but would this stand up to judicial review? You cannot create a court outside of the court system and escape responsibility to appeals and stuff. You cannot. So I mean, I'm just saying that
we have to go to court for common sense. It's common sense, man. I mean,
Yeah, but Gary, I don't think people sit down and draft a law and write $700,000 or anything like that without having a reason and a purpose. And what you need to do is find out what exactly is the reason and the purpose for that. What they're trying to do. Because it seriously sounds to me like they're trying to discourage fishing.
well, I mean, in my humble view, I think, but I don't know. I think that what they are trying to do is create penalties for international fleets, for Taiwanese and other international
Okay,
fleets.
so I'm saying to you, shouldn't the legislation then be tiered to speak to different sizes of vessels and different net capacities and stuff?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
But shouldn't it? But shouldn't
this
it?
This is part of the comments that we've made year after year for 20 years, that they need to distinguish between who and what and how. And all of the things that I've raised only maybe 5 points. But our written comments numbered 94 separate comments. 94.
Gary, I
So
wish
when
there
we
was a
have
way
them-
to bring Vernon de Lima into this conversation. He is here and he's making comments on the thread now. I'd like to have him. Maybe you and I could stick up in and I could talk to Satish Ramsaran and we set up a panel and bring this on Plain Talk tomorrow. And we have you on video and we have attorneys present and former legislators, people who could guide the process so we can have a better understanding of not only where we are but where we should go. Would you be open to
10
that?
years ago, we employed Professor Rajendra Ramlogan, and he had a company at that time, still has a company called Eco Legal Advisory Services, and they represented FFOS. There were 3 attorneys, and the Fishery Division had 3 delegates, and they met like 10 times and went through all the components of the legislation to properly advise on how the legislation could be amended so it could become more functional. All of that work was just thrown to the wind, and nothing of that work and those submissions and representations have been included in what has come to us again. So, I mean, there are amendments that were made. For instance, 2 years ago, a person would be charged $700,000 TT for spearfishing. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there was a delegate of a recreational fishing group who made comment that spearfishing is one of the most important ways of fighting the lionfish. So how could you be creating a legislation to make spearfishing illegal? It just defies common sense. So some things have been removed since the last consultation was held 2 years ago, but the majority of the content has remained the same.
For those of you now joining us, this is Gary Aboud on the phone with me of Fishermen Friends of the Sea, raising concerns about legislation that is currently before the Parliament that Mr. Aboud is saying that the penalties and some of the offences, they don't line up and they don't match with the reality and the circumstances that exist. Gary, I just asked you though, because to take this to a level that could get the audience and get the message out, I mean, I want to assist you in any way that I could. All I am saying though, I am hearing from what you are saying, this overkill sounds like it has a reason behind it.
But the reasoning is that the international agencies, the ICAS, and so they want to protect the international migratory species, the yellowfin and bluefin tuna, and there are certain endangered species of shark, etc. So
but this is only applies in Trinidad water.
Well, we have renegade, you have flags of convenience throughout the Caribbean where Caribbean fisheries ministers sell the right to wear the flag of that country. So Taiwanese fleets would buy into Belize, Grenada, St. Vincent.
Okay, but
Dominica,
before you go down that road, because we know that, but what I'm asking you is this. This law could only apply to fishermen fishing in Trinidad water. If you are coming from outside of Trinidad with a boat full of fish, it doesn't apply. Does it?
It applies to the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago. It would mean if you're coming into our waters with fish, it would apply. In fact, it's so draconian. If you go to Grenada and you buy a boat in Grenada, and you leave Grenada and you're coming to Trinidad, and when you're very near to Trinidad, you see Covali beacon. So you decide to slack a line to catch a fish, but you don't have a license for that boat. You could lose your boat completely, plus you would never get a license. It goes on and on. So there's a certain regiment. If you are a yachty and you are coming in from St. Vincent, and while you are coming in, you decide to slack a line and do a slow through, you could lose your yacht.
No, but Gary, in this instance, ignorance of the law must apply. This is a stupid law.
Yes, it's stupid law. We spend millions of dollars of technical people.
What is your plan? What is your plan, you and the 51,000 fishermen? Do you want to go to the Red House and protest? What do you and the fishermen want to do? Because you have our support, of course, but you have to call the play. What is the next response? Because if this becomes a law and somebody gets charged, that somebody has to then seek judicial review of this law to see if it is actually constitutionally sound.
We'll be having a meeting on Saturday with as many of the leaders who are willing to attend. We don't, you see, it's an election year.
It will always be political, Gary, because you can't sit on the sideline and tell you this. You can't sit there swinging your feet while government after government pay lip service to the fishing industry and the environment. Because you need to get to a point where, and I want to compare it to when I told Nylon Hippolyte, who was the member of parliament for Laventille West. I said, Nylon, marginalize Laventille so that they will treat you with the same respect they treat in St. Augustine, Tunapuna, and St. Joseph. If they don't know they're going to win, they're not going to treat you as hands-off as they do now. Gary, you need to get political, because if the governments of the day, trading between left and right, don't really have to pay attention to you. You don't have a political voice, and these are political issues.
But for us to get, you see, our members, we run the risk.
I know what you're saying. Listen, the Progressive Empowerment Party is a political organization. We stand for certain things, an environmental bill of rights, animal bill of rights, and we need to talk with the entire spectrum of activists outside there, including you, so that the people could be guided from the ground. What matters to the ground? A government's job is not to whip and shackle its people. The well-being of all the citizens is the function and purpose of government. Keith Rowley wasn't put into government to whip and shackle the fishermen of the country. Fishermen lives matter too. So you need to make sure that who is writing legislation in the parliament respect the 51,000 fishermen and their families.
Last week was the 1-year anniversary of our 7 boys who were murdered outside Orange Valley. And people have said all kinds of nasty things that these boys were involved in drugs. But Phillip, people don't know. If they were involved in drugs, they wouldn't be fishing. They wouldn't have in the first instance. They were murdered, and we were able to trace the engines to a house in Sealots because one of our men had a GPS on the engines. The police didn't do any work. The Coast Guard never even responded.
And again,
never even responded.
Gary Aboud, again.
They have no gas in the helicopter.
Gary, again, it is political.
A minister's son loses a cell phone, and the whole police service goes to look for calling member's son telephone and recovers it. But 7 men murdered on sea, chopped with cutlass and thrown overboard without even a life jacket. So
Gary, it is way past time. We, the people of Trinidad, recognition and a cathedral. I think they get a school. The fishermen have to organize themselves politically. That is where political will comes from. I hope you could invite me to your meeting. I come in there to sit down there as a person who understands how to organize people politically. And if at the end of the conversation they feel moved to walk with us, we will walk with you. If not, walk on your It is a good thing. We need more elections like that. We need more and more opportunities for people like you, because Gary Aboud, you are a political animal and you just don't know it. All that work that you do, that's politics, sir. But I would like to work with you and help you. So after this interview here, and I'll give you a chance to close your closing comments. After this interview here, I would like you to let me know how we could assist, because you know you have my full support. So give them your closing comments, my friend.
Well, I want to get you a copy of the document. It's about 1,500 pages.
Homework.
I'm going to get a copy of it tomorrow and get it to you. And then I'm going to highlight the areas that you could actually see for yourself. It wouldn't just be my words saying something. You could actually read it. The document the law, before it's passed, it will have to go to a special select committee. So we don't know who would be appointed to that special select committee from the UNC side or from the independent side, but it's very important that we're able to meet with them and that they can represent the issues to us. If it is that the law is passed, then it definitely would become a matter that has to go to the court and to other forum where it would have to be properly determined. But I really hope that that good sense will prevail and the public could become aware of how unjust and brutal the politics is, and in a subtle way, but brutal. It's important that people know.
Gary, I really want to thank you for coming on the show, for raising this issue. We're going to follow through with it. I'm looking forward to the homework of reading your 15 highlight where you need me to read so I can read that. This is an election season, but we are willing to work with you on this and mobilize with you. The Parliament's job is to serve the people, not to shackle and whip the people. And we need to get a political response to this political problem. Yeah? Thanks a lot for calling me, Gary.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Pete. Bye-bye.
Gary Aboud is one of the hardest working activists. We're talking animal bill of rights, and I want to go and cut that dog ass like it having a bad dream. I'm just joking, we don't big dogs here. But the reality of what Gary just raised, to people who not fishermen, they don't care. To the people who don't even eat fish. But if you like fish and you eat fish and you're in fish and you're in a restaurant business or you're in the supermarket trade or you just buy fish regular for your home, because all of a sudden certain importers are going to dominate. They already control the supermarkets, and they control the price marts and those places. So you could imagine if the fishermen who support the fish market stop fishing. Sounding like a pumpek, Ricky. That dog, his name is George. We call him George of the jungle. George has killed 5 birds, 4 iguanas, and a rat. And he doesn't stop hunting. So that noise you're hearing outside there is something that George hunting tonight. Trust me on that. We will wake up in the morning and we will see the corpse. I apologize. Because of COVID-19, we do our shows home, and, well, George is tonight's guest appearance. Yeah? This issue that Gary Aboud raised tonight is another example of why you need to get involved. I want to read something for you, and it's important. Let me try and see if I could get George to quiet down. I want to read something. This has been around a long time. It was a full quote on a tombstone. A longer version by the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. But this is something that you need to pay attention to, because it applies to all of the circumstances. If you think that you only have to get involved in what matters to you. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. That is something for you to take seriously. I'm going to wrap tonight's video up early and go and check and see what George is trying to kill. And I apologize for that. Tomorrow night, for tomorrow night's video, we got to lock George in a room. But it is very important that you get political and you pay attention, because what is happening to the farmers and what's happening to the fishermen in the silence and the darkness of your not knowing is what is driving the price of the cost of your food through the roof, and has you working 2 and 3 times harder than you need to be working. The Progressive Empowerment Party is the vehicle that will help you get yourself proper representation. And if you want a country that functions properly, where legislation is brought to the parliament that respects the rights of all the people, you need to save TNT and vote PEP. Until tomorrow,